Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Film Pod. I am JT Dubs,
This is Ivan Lichtenstein.
and you're watching the Film Pod. All right, let's see. So we are starting our stream today, and our good friend Lauren is not here with us today. She had something come up, so we are streaming without her right now. So I told her she's welcome to come join us at any time. But as for now, you just got the OG Film Pod hosts, me and Ivan Lichtenstein.
Woo.
And Ivan, let's see. I'm going to send out the link
All
over
right.
Facebook, and then we can pretty much get started in just a few minutes. So, Ivan, I know we talked about this last year a little bit on the Film Pod, but what did you think of E3 this year?
It was all right.
Yeah, I
There were a
probably
couple things
liked.
that I saw in it that were great, and then the majority of it was just kind of eh.
Yeah, I think I may have liked this year's better than last year's, even though this wasn't a good E3. I just feel like last year there was not really a lot that was very memorable, whereas this year I felt like everything last year that was memorable was just cringy, whereas this year like I was actually legitimately interested in some of the games.
Yeah. I will say
Let's see.
Cyberpunk had a really good presentation. Obviously, everyone saw that, so I'm not gonna get too into that.
Who?
Um,
Cyberpunk?
Cyberpunk, yeah, I can't wait for
Oh
that.
yeah, that's my number one game of next year
It's really,
probably.
really good. I'm anticipating it's gonna be
For
really
sure,
good.
man.
I felt like Nintendo's
With
was good.
Keanu Reeves.
What? Yes.
Yeah, Nintendo probably of the big companies probably had the best one just because I'm a huge Banjo-Kazooie fan, as you know.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal for me.
Do you find it
And
kind of
then
weird? Do you find it
what's
kind
that?
of disappointing though that a lot of the new games are just sequels?
Well, that's the thing with Nintendo is there. Are you talking about Nintendo or just like gaming in general?
Well, no, just Nintendo because they had Luigi's Mansion 3 coming out, and then they had a new Mario versus Sonic game coming out.
Yeah, well, Nintendo is big on the franchises. They only do it like a new IP like every like there's only really ever like one big new franchise that comes out like each generation. Like the Wii U had Splatoon, and I think like the Wii had like the Xenoblade,
Yeah, that was
and then like GameCube had like Pikmin. Like each and maybe like Animal Crossing. Like each console kind of has like a new franchise that kind of launches, but other than that, it's almost always sequels with Nintendo, which I
yeah,
like because I like their
I
old
agree.
games and I
Right.
like
It's
their
like
new games. So let's
yeah, it's funny
see.
too. I honestly just don't think you really need E3 that much anymore this year. I mean, not this year, but like at all, just because like for how big they make it, I don't think it's like worth it to have like a full scale event for it for a video, basically what is essentially video game announcements.
Yeah, I think I like having E3 just for the standpoint of like it being there is really cool, and I think it should continue to exist. But if it sort of goes down in like scope over the next couple of years, like if they just want to make it a smaller thing, I'd be okay
I'm
with that.
rather than just sharing the link and copying and
But
pasting. That's why I'm like,
yeah,
yeah,
but I would definitely want it to continue, to be honest, because I think it's cool to give people those experiences of getting to play the games hands on. Because I mean, like we're not you and I are don't actually go to the event, but it's a bigger deal for people that actually go to it.
yeah,
Whereas for us, it's just something we react to on the internet. But I think it's I think E3 is pretty cool. It has been kind of more and more underwhelming each year, but I don't know if there's like a couple good announcements here and there that come out of it, like all the stuff they showed with Cyberpunk and the Nintendo had a couple cool things at E3. Their E3 was in the middle, pretty boring, but they did show a lot of cool stuff
hmm
in general. So I mean, I think like it's good that it's around, and I want to keep seeing it happen each year. But because I've been keeping up with E3 probably since 2012, 2013. Like I've been keeping up with it for a good amount of years. But in general, does it need to keep going? Like
it's.
with
I
it
feel
with
like
the internet, it's really not necessary. But like I'd
that's
still
my
take
favorite.
it. Like it's cool.
Yeah, no, it's
It's like
cool. Like see the live streams and all that.
for
Did you see
sure.
speaking of live streams? Did you see the one with Elon Musk and uh Tom Howard?
Is was that the Bethesda one?
It was Bethesda, but it was like crossed with Tesla because they were making video games for the Tesla that you can play in the Tesla now. So
Hmm.
you can play Cuphead in your Tesla.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but then I don't know. It's like it's cool, but like why would I want that for a car?
Oh yeah, it's not necessary. They're just,
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, they're doing all this like game streaming stuff now where what is it? It's the Google's got one. What's it called? The name is
Yeah,
escaping me.
Stadia.
Stadia, yeah, yeah. So I mean, they're doing all this streaming stuff now, and Microsoft is really kind of leading right now in terms of like they're advancing sort of the ways you can play games, and they're focusing more now on just kind of getting their games on all the platforms, and like they're playing games on Switch, they're playing more games on PC now. They're trying to kind of start with streaming, so it's interesting where gaming's going. I think we won't see a huge change in things until the next console generation, which is next year. And then, of course, VR in the next 10 years is totally going to blow up. I mean, we're starting to see kind of the early signs of that. So,
Yeah, I mean it's just really weird like how far it's gone like from what we like used to know.
oh yeah, I mean, we were born into a much older generation of gaming than what is around now. But
Yeah,
anyway, let's talk about movies because this is not
yeah,
the Game Pod, even though I'm wearing a gaming shirt.
yeah.
I
I'm
guess in
wearing
honor of E3, I don't know.
E3 did not take place in Las Vegas, obviously.
Yeah. So, Ivan, let's get our timer going. And by timer going, we're just going to watch the clock. So, in 15 minutes, we'll shift over to the next movie. But our new release that we are talking about today is called Rocketman. Uh,
Rocketman. So
I thought you'd have a comment on that.
no, this is I guess the part where I talk about it. So Rocketman is the new movie about Elton John's life, starring Taron Egerton as Elton John. Basically, it chronicles his life from when he started playing piano as a kid to where he is now as an entertainer. That's known all over the world and has sold hundreds of millions of records. And along that, it shows his struggles with drug addiction, with fame, and just other sorts of things that encompasses his life during this pivotal time as well. So Jackson, what did you think of Rocketman?
Well, first of all, given that it was a musical biopic, I was actually kind of surprised it was actually a musical. Like that it has actual like musical numbers in it that
Hmm.
serve as an actual musical in the way that like a Broadway musical would be, where there's like legit choreography, sort of breaks the fourth wall, and that kind of surprised me. I know everyone's going to compare it to Bohemian Rhapsody, which this is a much better kind of, I wouldn't say version of it, but this is a much better like way of doing this type of movie than Bohemian Rhapsody was. But I was so used to movies like that just were like, we're gonna just do a musical number where they're just recording the song and that's all it is. And this, like, they went above and beyond and made it actually like a musical, and that was pretty cool. And I thought most of the actors had pretty decent singing voices. I wasn't crazy about the little kids singing.
Yeah,
They weren't bad, but they also weren't that good either. Like,
here's the thing with the little kid. He was not a good singer, but he was a fairly good actor.
yeah, and I mean for a little kid, he was an okay singer, but yeah, that would have been the one case where I was like, maybe you could have auto tuned him just a hair, maybe just to make him a little bit more on pitch.
Yeah.
But overall, like the music in this film is fantastic. I love Elton John. I've been a huge Elton John fan for many years. I actually got to see him live a few years ago, and that was without a doubt one of the best concert experiences I've ever had. And I'm a huge fan of him as a person. I think he's really great, and this movie made me love him even more because of the fact that I really didn't know a ton about his personal life beforehand, but seeing just all the struggles he overcame and the fact that, I mean, I don't know how much of it was dramatized, but the way that really his life was not great for most of it, and he overcame a lot of odds against him, like having just a really unsupportive family life, and a lot of just people started just kind of abusing him and using him for his fame once he became famous. And I don't know. I thought the relationship between him and his friend who wrote his songs for him,
Bernie
so,
Taupin.
yeah, their relationship in the movie I thought was really interesting. I liked their dynamic, and overall, Taron Egerton, is that his name, right?
I think it's Egerton. I just
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, he was fantastic in the lead role. He did a great job. Ivan, what are your thoughts on Rocketman?
Rocketman was pretty great. It's pretty good. It's basically like you said, like it's the better version of Bohemian Rhapsody, even though they're not the same movie. But it is kind of interesting how they kind of came out almost in the same time span of like following the biopic of a musician. But I thought it was really good. And one of the things that I thought it did better in a way, and I'm not trying to compare it. This is the only comparison I saw. Was when one of your complaints with Bohemian Rhapsody was that if you had no idea who Queen were and you know only knew who Freddie Mercury was, that's all you would know from the movie. And that's all you would pretty much remember. Whereas in this movie, you have no idea who these characters are, but by the end of it, you get so invested into the side characters and the people that are all around Elton's life that you really do care about these characters. And whether you don't care about them, it's you know they are, you know their quirks and personality types. So
Yeah,
that was
this movie was so much better balanced from a storytelling perspective
yeah,
with the characters.
for
Absolutely,
sure.
much better balance.
I also like the idea of how they utilize the song choices to tell the story in a way. Because throughout the movie, there are certain musical numbers that break out, and they use certain songs from Elton's catalog to show what was being represented within that scene. And I just like creative things like that. Whereas like in other movies, it would be things that literally characters use exposition for,
Oh yeah.
and no visual dynamic to it, or no creative dynamic to it, lack of a better word. But within this movie, there is a lot that's going on visually, dynamically, creatively, to get these certain shots and to get these certain sequences that happen that are really pleasing to the eye. And not only that, but like I said before, also show a visual representation of what was going through Elton John's mind and life at the time.
Well, they take advantage of the medium of film, of being a visual medium, and making it an artistic piece instead of just this is just some stuff that happened in his life. In
Yeah.
a lot of ways, it reminded me. Have you ever seen Across the Universe?
Yes.
Yeah, it sort of it reminded me of that in certain ways, probably just because both of them have really trippy drug sequences in them. But over the overall style, I felt like kind of mixed that biopic with that sort of I'm trying to think of the term for movies like Across the Universe. It's they're like it's like a it's not
Historical
a
fantasies, I would
yeah,
say.
or it's like a jukebox musical or something. I don't know, like something where they take like pop songs and put them in. But overall, though, I mean, I felt like this film really, to me, it hit on an emotional level. Like I really felt for him. I really cared about his struggle, and it's kind of hard to make you care about like like famous people sometimes because you just think, oh wow, their lives are so great and they've like had so much success and they've just lived these awesome lives. But then you look at it and it's like, no, like this dude has struggled with a lot of different things. Most of the stuff he really didn't deserve to have to deal with because for the most part, he's a pretty good guy. I mean, he goes down kind of a bad path in the middle of it, but for the most part, like my big thing with Bohemian Rhapsody, I hate to keep comparing the two, but it's so fresh in my mind, I can't help but compare them.
I don't think I don't have a
But
problem
Bohemian
with
Rhapsody, I guess what I'm saying is Bohemian Rhapsody, like it didn't really make me like Freddie Mercury. Like I love Freddie Mercury, but I that movie didn't make me like him because they kind of made him out to be an asshole, and I mean maybe he kind of was, but it certainly didn't make me like him more, even though the actor's performance was great. Whereas this one, it showed a darker side of his personality, but it didn't make him unlikable because they communicate from the beginning that he's got a lot of problems and he really has an issue with loving himself, and that's kind of the whole theme of the movie is learning to love yourself, which personally I thought was a really good message for the movie because I think it sort of came across throughout his whole career.
No, I agree. I always say this about there's also like going back to what you said about him like having that time of his life where he is an asshole or like acts that way. There's that scene where he's like about to get on stage, and he's talking with Bernie Taupin and he shouts at Bernie Taupin over something and Bernie Taupin and then he immediately says, "I'm sorry," and then Bernie says, "I know." And just like that line, that whole sequence in general kind of shows like their relationship of what they had and like even though that he is this guy going through this, he still cares like deep down about people and like wants to make people happy.
Yeah, his and Bernie's relationship was really touching for me to watch because it's very rare you see in a movie, a gay man and his best friend who's another man, and they don't have like a romantic connection. It's just a solid friendship, and that's really like not shown very much in many movies. And I think I've had several gay friends, and I think personally there's a lot of truth to that. That we like to movies that have LGBT characters, you tend to show, okay, they're gonna always have that relationship with the same sex. But no, I mean, like, they were just friends, and that's just cool to see because that's real.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about what we loved about this movie. Jackson, did you have anything negative to say or any critiques?
Yeah, I had one or two small gripes. The first one, the whole plot line with him having a wife was totally just rushed through. Like,
It was,
she's introduced in one scene, and then the next scene they're married, and then in the next scene they're unhappy in the marriage, and then the scene after they're divorced. Like, the whole thing goes by in like 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes tops. Like, it's really weird. I mean, it's like if you're gonna have her in there, introduce her more early on and have their maybe relationship develop, and then I don't know, tie it in better with his overall character arc. But she just felt kind of like a plot device to me.
yeah. I mean, I'll say one thing about that is that that happens and it kind of takes you out of place, but it doesn't happen for that long, at least. Like, it doesn't take you out of the whole movie.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like stupid or ridiculous or anything, but it was definitely like, okay, like you could have, like it felt like kind of maybe that the movie was too long and they had to edit something out, and they were like, okay, well we can cut this, and I feel like there'd be a couple more deleted scenes of them at some point because it did seem just totally out of nowhere.
Yeah. Maybe that'll be on like the Blu-ray or DVD release of the movie.
Possibly. And then I guess my only other complaint is like the kid singing was kind of not
Yeah.
great. Really, other than that though, I'm really trying to think because for the most part, this was a pretty solid experience for me. Uh, maybe a couple other things felt a little rushed. I guess certain aspects with his parents, I didn't because I don't know the true story. I haven't really looked up to see like how accurate that relationship was, but some of the parts with his mom just being a bitch to him seemed a little melodramatic, but it could have really been that way. So I don't know. It's more like I'd have to see how it was in real life to kind of judge that. Also, Bryce Dallas Howard, who plays his mom, she doesn't age at all until like the last scene with her, and he's like aged like 20 years and like in the first like half of the movie, and she looks the exact same.
Yeah, movies do a lot of movies I've seen do a really bad job of that. I don't know what it is, but I've
Yeah,
seen a lot.
yeah. So I mean, again, a few minor gripes, but nothing that really took me out of the movie. What about you? Anything you particularly didn't like?
I mean, yeah, the kid singing. I'm not gonna talk too much about that because we've already discussed it. But this isn't really like a gripe, but one of the articles I read before the movie came out was that it was gonna be R-rated, and you had a bunch of people saying online too that it was gonna be more raunchy than Bohemian Rhapsody, and then even like the studio was saying like we want to tell a more true story. But for an R-rated movie, I didn't think it was that like raunchy at all.
No, actually, I think YMS kind of talked about it a little bit. The reason it got the
Oh,
R
really?
rating was because of the gay sex, and the MPAA is really weird and kind of homophobic, I think.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think I
And
watched
they
part.
say and they say fuck a couple times, I guess. So,
Yeah, but other than that, it's fine. I mean,
all
there's
right,
a lot
Ivan,
of drug
what's that?
use. Like that's it.
Did you have anything else to say?
Nope, that's all.
Okay, well, Ivan, what would you rate this movie?
I'm going to give Rocketman a 7. Actually, no. I'll give Rocketman an 8 out of 10.
Okay, I think I'm gonna also give it a 7. But it really does kind of go in that 7 or 8 range. I think
Yeah.
for me the 7 was just because maybe there were a couple, like, I think for the most part it's a pretty solid 8 movie, but I think some of the nitpicks I had kind of bring it down to a 7 just because I think in modern filmmaking certain things like aging the mom and maybe like getting a better singing voice for the kid, like some of that stuff they should have watched and been like, okay, we need to
Actually,
in
I'm gonna
front of
change
this.
my score to 7 now.
Yeah, because just a couple of things were a little sloppy in
Yeah,
that regard. But for the most part, like if it wasn't for those things, I would have given it an 8 because it really was a really fun experience. And unlike Bohemian Rhapsody, I will definitely be watching this one again at some point.
I agree wholeheartedly with you.
Cool. Well,
Right.
we're going to talk about our next movie, which is our classic movie from 1997, the year
Bring
Ivan was
it.
born, Good Will Hunting. So, Ivan, why don't you talk a little bit about that real quick?
Yeah, so Good Will Hunting is a movie about a guy named Will Hunting who is kind of he's not a low life, but he kind of lives that whole low life lifestyle where he doesn't really have a lot of friends, he doesn't go to college, he doesn't really have a successful job. He works as a janitor at a college, but something that's really unique about him is that he has this super intelligent ability just to solve these complex math problems that no one else can do except these extremely highly regarded professors who do it for the students. So one day he gets in trouble in a scuffle and he's about to go to jail for a long time. And then one of the professors says, "Hey, we'll work out a plea deal." And was it a professor who did that?
Yeah, it was the professor who created the problem.
Yeah,
He found out that Will had solved the problem, and he had to hunt him down. Good Will
good.
Hunting. Uh,
Yeah,
Also, I wasn't expecting his name to actually be Will Hunting, but
yeah,
he hunts him down, and he's basically like, "Okay, we're gonna make a deal. If you come and work with me on these mathematical problems, and you get therapy, then you won't have to go to jail, basically."
yeah,
And so he's really apprehensive to go to therapy. He's cool with the math, but he really doesn't want to do the therapy because really, I would say the main theme of this movie is sort of being able to open up emotionally, which is, I think, pretty relatable for a lot of people, especially a lot of men.
yeah.
And what else did you think about the movie, Ivan? We'll let you talk first, and then I'll give my
I'm
thoughts.
gonna finish off the plot a little bit too, because he goes to therapy and he like all these therapists like can't deal with him. He can't deal with them back until he meets Robin Williams, who's his therapist, and they kind of like relate in a way because both come from the same area. They both grew up rough, but they just walk on two different paths of life and they finally meet. And so I think and so that's what Good Will Hunting is.
Yeah, and also they both kind of are dealing with the same elements of they don't really want to experience their full capacity in life because of something holding them back emotionally. So that's kind of where the two characters connect. But you want to hear my thoughts on this movie, Ivan? My real thoughts.
Yes,
I'm gonna be totally honest with you, man. This is one of the best movies I've ever seen.
I told you.
Like, I don't remember you telling me that, but
I kept telling you
but
like it was great. You have to see it. You have to see it.
yeah, I cried. I don't cry during movies, but I cried when I watched this last night. This was one of the best movies I've ever watched. It really hits from an emotional level, and I feel like the acting is perfect. The casting for these roles is perfect, and
This was back when Matt Damon was good.
I know, man. He's fantastic in this movie. He really
Yeah.
pulls it off, and the love interest too. You know, his connection with the love interest. I thought that was really great. Like their love story. I'm not normally into love stories, but I thought that their romantic arc was really good too. I mean, just every relationship. I thought the relationship between the professor and the therapist was really great too. I mean, every and between Will and his best friend, like Ben Affleck. At first, I thought Ben Affleck's character was really obnoxious and was just a stupid asshole. And then
Hmm.
by the end of the movie, like you see their connection, and you're like, wow, like these are great actors giving great performances, and I believe these characters. And I mean, not to go into every little aspect of it, but I mean, from an acting and writing standpoint, everything was perfect. I didn't, from a cinematography standpoint, I didn't. There wasn't a ton of stylistic choices I noticed.
I
I
would
did
argue
notice.
that
I
you
did. I did notice they did do a lot of shots where it's like panning behind another person, which is interesting. That's not a. I'm not taking a stab at the cinematography. I thought cinematography was great. I just it wasn't. There wasn't anything for me to really comment on for it being different. It was good. But overall, though, I mean connections with these characters and the way that. I mean, I don't want to spoil too much because I would like for people who haven't watched it to go check it out and not have us ruin everything for them. But I mean, wow! Like I was totally blown away by this movie.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, Ivan?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is probably one of my favorite movies. I don't have it on DVD yet. I think I saw it, but it was like really highly priced, and I want to buy it. But it's one I definitely do want to get on DVD because, like, if ever I pull out my DVD collection again, I want to pop a DVD in, I can just watch that. If I'm ever someone that doesn't have Wi-Fi and a DVD player. But I do like this. Like, this is one of the best movies I've ever seen, like all the way through. And it's one of those movies that gets better and better and better throughout the entire runtime, so it builds up into getting better.
For sure.
Like, because everything makes sense, like, at the end. Well, not let me rephrase that. Everything builds up to different points of the movie that are explored and looked at, and then by the end, all these things come together to make what makes Good Will Hunting great.
And I think too, this movie, for me personally, I feel like it has one of the strongest messages in a movie ever. Like it's almost like the whole movie was made to just get across one message. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times movies will throw in a bunch of different messages or it'll kind of get muddled, but this movie has like probably the clearest like overall message to the people watching it and it's a very clear message, but not in the way that they're telling you the message, but the way that they perfectly communicate it through characters and characterization and story. And that's how, I mean, that's ideally how you put a message into your movie, is by making it be told through the characters and through the story. I know it seems obvious, but you don't always see that. Sometimes you just get exposition dumps in movies, and movies that don't really, I don't know, just don't seem to have this level of care put into them in terms of the writing. And I don't know, man, but I mean, the ending, it just, like the last 30 minutes or so just hits so hard. Like every scene, like one scene after another just hits so hard. I mean, you have, the falling out of the relationship that Matt Damon has with his girlfriend. You have the conversation between him and his best friend, played by Ben Affleck. You have sort of that back and forth between the professor and Robin Williams, and you have that moment where, now I won't spoil it, but the moment at the end where you have that last real connection between Robin Williams and Matt Damon. And I mean, that was just such a real moment. And especially in retrospect, knowing now how much Robin Williams dealt with depression and how he ended up taking his own life because of it. This that makes this movie honestly even more powerful and hard hitting, because of the fact that you look at this and you're like, wow, the actor really was dealing with everything he pretty much was talking about in this movie. And that's, I think, what makes it so genuine. And I think if I had to pick one word that summed up this whole film, is genuine. Everything about it was like genuine and real, and nothing about it felt fake or phony. I guess the most like kind of movie scene in there that felt like a movie was like the scene where Ben Affleck is kind of swindling those guys who are trying to get Matt Damon to take that job offer. That felt like a performance, but it was really funny. Like it was probably the funniest scene in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only scene that sort of felt like a performance. The rest of it felt like just like watching real people deal with real things. And I don't know, man. I mean, I haven't looked this up. Did anyone win any Oscars for this? Because I feel like this was did Robin Williams win an Oscar for this, or Matt Damon? Like
He
somebody
won.
deserves an
Yeah.
Oscar for this movie. I mean,
No, Robin
really.
Williams, Best Supporting Actor.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
there we go. Like somebody deserved something really good. Somebody deserves some big award for this, because this was
yeah.
one
And
of the
I
best
think
movies
it
I've ever
was
seen.
also written and produced by, or maybe just written by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah,
Their relationship definitely kind of showed in the movie for sure, and that, like I said, made it feel even more genuine, honestly.
yeah. They both wrote the screenplay.
Okay, yeah, I think I saw that at the beginning, but yeah. Any other thoughts, Ivan? I mean, what else is there to talk about with this?
Uh,
I mean, I'm just glowing here. There's everything was. so great. I mean,
I'm gonna go into two things. I'm gonna go into like how exposition in a movie sometimes doesn't work. I'm gonna talk about why Good Will Hunting does it right. So obviously everyone knows like exposition in a movie, when you have characters talking for too long and you do not have the audience's attention, your movie is going to fall down flat like that. Wouldn't you agree?
oh yeah, for
Like
sure.
just a general thing I'm saying, but and this is gonna be kind of spoilery, so spoiler warning in five,
For a
four,
22-year-old movie.
3, 2. You never know. 2, 1. Um, so one of the things I think that makes the exposition great in this movie is just specifically the relationship between Matt Damon and Robin Williams, and between Will Hunting and, because I have the cast list pulled up right now, Will Hunting and Sean McGuire. So when they first start talking, they are very against each other. Matt Damon doesn't like Will Hunting doesn't like Sean that much. Sean has an animosity towards him, but he's still trying to help him. Then towards that middle portion of the movie, they start talking together, they're starting to get along, but they're still not really opening up. And then towards the end, Sean's looking at his record file, seeing all the things he's done in his life, and then he talks about everything, and then Will's just kind of like saying, "Yeah, it happened, not a big deal, not a big deal, not a big deal. I don't care about it." And then the "it's not your fault" scene comes up, and that's when it
Yeah,
really
that's the best scene in the movie, honestly.
yeah.
That's and yeah, we don't need to spoil the whole thing because I really think it's one of those movies. Like I'm really glad that somehow through it being a 22-year-old movie, I had never nothing of this has ever been spoiled to me. Like this whole movie, not that there's like crazy plot twists or anything, but like I
Right.
didn't going into this movie, I didn't know really anything about it other than the general plot. And I don't want to rob anyone who hasn't seen this movie of the experience of watching it for the first time. And to anyone watching this, just go see this movie, or it's on
Yeah.
Netflix. So literally, almost everybody has a Netflix account. If you don't have a Netflix account, good chance your best friend or your mom or your cousin, somebody's got a Netflix account. Go watch Good Will Hunting.
Yeah,
That's
for
my
sure. It's great.
recommendation. So Ivan, I know we've said this movie is near perfect. Are there any nitpicks, flaws, anything negative you'd like to bring up since we like to talk
I
about
have
positive and
nothing.
negative?
Honestly, I have nothing.
Nothing. I have one thing, and I don't. For me, this is not a negative. This is just something that because I think under the right circumstances, I think this movie shows us that we don't really need to see this. But I did think it was interesting that we never really find out too much why Will is just such a genius. Like
Yeah,
we never get a huge explanation like, oh, he, genetically his, like, I guess I'm trying to get like, we don't know like were his parents brilliant people, or was that what, did he grow up near like a library and did he have fascinated with reading? Like there's no like simple explanation for like why. But at the same time, I say this not posed as a negative, but I will say I think the point this movie was trying to make by never really telling us why he's just a genius is because it's almost trying to make him relatable in the way that like they're basically saying anyone could have something really special about them, and if you ignore that thing that's special about you, then you will never own up to your true potential. So I think maybe they were trying to not give like I think they were trying to give him as humble of an upbringing and as kind of a lack of a real reason why he's a genius. They're just, the point of the movie is he's a genius. Go with
right.
it. And for that reason, like I said, like watching through it for about the first half, I was just kind of like, well, when are they gonna explain why he's this smart? Like, there's no way that someone would just be this smart. But then it clicked to me at the end. No, the point is not how he's a genius, not like the reason why. The point is he is, and what matters is that he's a special person and he needs to be using his skills somewhere and not be like he needs to live up to his full potential, and not only live up to his full potential from a talent or genius level, but from the fact that he just needs to live his life and really go out and live. And it's kind of funny. It's kind of like Dead Poet Society in a way that these Robin Williams movies seem to be about seizing the day and sort of taking life. And
Yeah.
making the most of it. It's kind of funny that these were both kind of released around the same time. Maybe Dead Poet Society may have been in the early '90s. I don't remember, but it is kind of funny that
It's funny.
Robin Williams does play these roles where he's always inspiring these young people to go live their, seize the day, carpe diem, and all that. But
I would say Carpe Diem, like for sure.
yeah, but like I said, that wasn't a nitpick that we don't know why he's a genius. I just thought it was interesting to bring up because throughout the first half of the movie, he's like a genius in like every subject, and I'm like, how did like that makes no sense. But then I thought about it, and I'm like, well, how he became a genius really doesn't matter. It's not even that he became a genius; he just is that smart. Like he was just
Yeah.
it all came naturally to him, and that's really cool. That I think that they have enough faith in the characters to where they don't have to tell you everything about them. And we live in a time now where there's so many movies that are in expanded universes, and there's like always so much exposition added to everything. And sometimes it's nice to just see a movie where they don't have to tell you everything about the character. I mean, one of the harshest parts about his upbringing we don't even find out until the like climax of the movie, really. And they really take their time in telling us things about him, and they don't just give us everything off the bat. And for that, I think it's a very mature movie. It treats its characters like real people, and it doesn't just treat them like characters with stats written on them.
Right.
So I think you and I both probably have the same rating for this movie because I'm giving it a 10 out of 10.
I have the same. Yep, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, we're agreeing a lot today. So agreed on the last one, agreed on this one. So now we are getting to our garbage movie, and this is one that a lot of people are probably gonna hate this one, or at least they remember hating this one. But I personally, when it came out, had some level of enjoyment for it. I was a very different age than I am now. But we're talking about Fred the movie from 2010. So
Speaking of 10,
you've started off the last couple. I'm going to start off this one. So Fred the movie is the adaptation of the YouTube video series from the, I guess, late 2000s, early 2010s, just over 10 years ago, of Fred Figglehorn, created by Lucas Cruikshank. And basically, the Fred character was a YouTube channel, like I said, from over 10 years ago. That was the first channel to ever hit 1 million subscribers, and basically was one of the first really big YouTubers to ever come out and sort of hit mainstream popularity. And so, inevitably, because of the fact that it was a sort of phenomenon at the time, they're like, all right, well, let's make a movie because money. And the Fred series is about a teenage guy who speeds up the videos he makes to make it sound like he's like a 6-year-old with a high chipmunk voice. And it was entertaining for kids at the time and preteens and people who were my age. And all the parents hated it. And it was really obnoxious. And as an adult now, I kind of understand where they were coming from now. But as a kid,
yeah,
when it was coming out, I kind of loved it, and it was Fred was one of the first YouTube channels I got into that made me really get into YouTube. I mean, that and Smosh and Iggy Higa and all those Shane Dawson, like all those guys really got me into YouTube. And if it wasn't for all those YouTubers, I probably wouldn't have started my channel in the first place. So, uh, but Ivan, what are your thoughts on? We'll talk about the Fred web series first, and then we'll get into the actual movie. What were your thoughts on Fred as a video series when it was coming out? Because you were the same age as me when it was
yeah. I
happening.
mean, it was fun. I mean, it was fun. I say fun lightly because it's fun for a kid that age to like it, I guess. But like I watched it again just in preparation for the movie, and I was like, oh my God, like I hate this. I cannot. I'm gonna
Yeah.
this movie.
Yeah, well, it's like thing about it is it's like you and I were talking before this.
Yeah,
It really is only for a certain age group,
it's
and really like it's like if the kids are like 6 or 7, they're probably too young to really get a lot of the darker, like more adult jokes in there. But then if you're above the age of like I'm gonna say like 14, maybe like it's gonna be too annoying for you. So it's like there's like maybe a 3 or 4 year age, like that really like preteen age is really where I think you can kind of appreciate the darker aspects of the character where, like with his mom being alcoholic and his dad being in jail, like, you can sort of appreciate those darker jokes because you're a preteen and it's kind of edgy, but
But one of the
or
things too
edgy
that
with the quotation marks, and then but also like you haven't gotten to the point yet where that high pitched sound just like irritates your ears like insanely.
yeah, but one of the things I do want to say too is that it's kind of interesting. I was thinking about it is just the question that I bring up. Even though Fred is this irritating, does he have a talent?
Lucas Cruikshank is talented in my opinion because
He is.
you don't see a ton of people putting this much energy into a character that is this annoying.
Well, when Fred was like really popular on YouTube too, you saw a lot of clones come out like during the time, people trying to rip him off and everything.
Oh yeah, I mean this was the biggest thing on YouTube for like a year or two, and that's I mean that's insane because all it was a kid just pitching up his voice. I mean he was like just a young teenager when he was making these videos, and
Yeah.
to me I think the appeal wasn't even necessarily the voice. I mean I think the voice was funny to kids, but I think the real appeal of Fred in his prime, we'll say, was that this was for kids, this was the first time we as kids got to see another kid make a show, and it felt genuine, like not genuine in the Goodwill Hunting sense, but genuine in that it was like felt like another kid. Like it felt like, hey, maybe if I had a camera and could edit, maybe I could make this, you know. And that was to me, I felt like that was relatable, and a lot of the topics in it were sort of darker and kind of felt more like it wasn't your it was I think Fred was kind of the opposite of the Disney Channel sitcom, which is ironic because it eventually became a Nickelodeon sitcom. So,
I
but
know.
it was kind of the antithesis to this really clean like structured entertainment, and we as kids I think kind of found that escape in Fred and other YouTubers that were just like this is very unstructured, very random, very weird content that felt I don't know, more true to what kind of our like what a kid could really make, you know, without a production studio and without any real production value, just like a pretty basic camera and I don't know, Windows Movie Maker or something. I mean, it was like very, I guess, relatable in that regard, in that it felt like something that you know any kid could have really come up with.
So going off of that, um, Fred became really popular, as you said, with kids, and I
Kids,
remember,
preteens.
yeah, and so a lot of kids and preteens watched Nickelodeon, and he did a couple of appearances on Nickelodeon. I think he was on iCarly at one point. He
That
was,
was kind of his big break was the iCarly episode that they featured him in,
yeah, and then that
which
didn't
is
really
one
go.
of the worst episodes of the show too. But
It wasn't even that good of a show either. But
no, but I mean that was it had some. iCarly had some pretty good episodes here and there, but that was like the worst one because that episode is like promoting bullying essentially. Like it's pretty bad. Like
it is, if you think about it, which is
I
really
mean the
weird.
one I mean the whole plot is one kid doesn't think Fred's funny, which is what all the adults are thinking. I mean everyone who's above the age of like 12 was thinking, but you know, then he just get bullied, and I don't know. There was like no message behind it that you shouldn't bully or even try to get along with people who you have difference of opinions with. It's no, just you should have liked Fred. You know, like fuck you for not liking Fred. Like
Yeah.
what? So bad. But yeah, so he had the iCarly appearance, and then now
Nickelodeon repopped
I think him getting a movie though. I believe I remember at the time rumors of him getting a movie it went on for like a year or two that he was getting a movie, and I think one of the big things was they made the Fred movie before it got picked up by Nickelodeon. I think it was originally going to be like an independent film, like
really.
theatrically, yeah, it was going to be theatrically released as an independent film, but because of the fact that it was a YouTube movie, basically, I don't think a ton of theaters really wanted it, and it was not. And I mean, even if I'm sure if they watched it, they were like, "We're not playing this in fucking theaters. What do you think?" Like, so I think Nickelodeon approached them, or maybe they approached Nickelodeon. I don't know, but some kind of deal was made where they moved the Fred movie from being this independent film to being a coming out on Nickelodeon, and it kind of shows because there are certain jokes in there that like are very adult in comparison to the majority of the movie. And
If
I'm
you
like,
search,
yeah, this seems more like it was made to be like released on the internet or something than it was made to be on Nickelodeon, because I even remember watching it and being like, some of the jokes in there being like, you said that on Nickelodeon on like like during the daytime, like not even Nick at Night, but like damn, like the one line where he's like shirtless and he's like, yeah, I can't be shirtless because too much sex appeal, and I'm like, what the fuck? This was
well, if
this
you
was on
go,
a kids
if you type
channel,
in
like,
movie on Google, you'll see all the reviews. They're all negative, by the way.
oh
But
yeah,
you'll go on a website that's called Common Sense Media, and I used to not like them at the time, but like now, like thinking about it, it's like, this is actually a fairly useful website. But basically, what it is, it shows different films that they grade not based on how good the film is, but like on how it would appeal to children, like if children should be watching it. It has a 1 out of 5.
well yeah, I mean, there's really nothing in here that's good for kids, and when I say kids, I mean like little kids. I do think that for preteens, like that 10 to, I don't know, 10 to 14 age range, I think this is a not a good movie by any means, because this is not a good movie. But
No,
I think that this hits the nail on the head pretty much for that demographic, if I'm being honest. Like, I remember being that age and totally loving this movie. Like, I will not, I'm not ashamed of the fact that when this came out, I was like 13. I love this movie because this movie is basically about an annoying weird kid. And when I was 13, I was an annoying weird kid. So I kind of I kind of related to it, to be honest. I mean, some of my oldest videos on this channel were from like around the time this came out, and most of my videos back then were me being stupid and screaming and being awkward and weird. And I mean, that's what this movie is, but on the big screen, or I guess not the big screen, but on a television channel. Um, and I don't know. I think I remember though when I saw this movie, I really liked it. I mean, I didn't think it was good. Like, even as a 13-year-old, I remember being like, that was a bad movie, but I really laughed and enjoyed it. Like, it was kind of a guilty pleasure thing even back then. But I remember they did a few more Fred movies and a Fred TV show on Nickelodeon, and I hated all of those because those were clearly corporate, like actually made by Nickelodeon, and that was, in my opinion, even worse than this weird ass. Like, this movie is weird as fuck, but I can sort of appreciate how weird and like batshit it is. What they did afterwards with it was just like milking it, and it was even worse in my opinion because it was just corporate Nickelodeon crap. But we've yet to talk about the actual film. Fred the movie, it's a 2010 movie starring Lucas Cruikshank. It is about Fred. I think instead of him being 6, he's like in high school in this one, I think.
yeah,
But I think they just changed it because they knew he didn't look like he was a 6-year-old. So they're like, you're just gonna make you your actual age. But and instead of speeding up his voice, I think they just kind of pitch shift it to make it a little higher pitched. But they don't speed him up like he does in the videos. So yeah, they basically, the plot of this movie is it's barely an existent plot. I mean, it barely even passes as a plot for a movie. But he's
Jackson,
trying to
can I say
he's
something?
trying to get the girl of his dreams to come over and sing with him, and they they find any way possible to just kind of shove in as many random. It's kind of like a Family Guy episode in that it's so much of it's just cutaway gags, but it's like, I really think that when they sat down and made this movie, they're like, all right, let's make a list of all the funny scenarios we can put Fred in that will be funny for kids.
Jackson,
And then
can
they wrote a
real fast.
script around all those things that they wrote on a bullet list.
I'm gonna say this right now.
Go ahead.
I hate this movie.
You
I
hate
can't stand
it.
this movie. I've actually seriously been pondering this. I didn't tell you yet. This might be the worst movie I've ever seen, or just seen parts of in my entire life.
Really.
I will say that right now. It's officially worse than Jurassic World. It's worse
Oh,
than
it's way worse than Jurassic World.
it's worse than any other movie I've ever seen in my entire life. It's the worst movie
Yeah.
I've ever seen in my entire life. If people now ask me that question, what's the worst movie you've ever seen in your entire life? It's this movie right here.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, even when I was 13 and really liked it, I liked it from a guilty pleasure. Like this is just stimulating that dumb 13-year-old like stupid random humor sense in my brain. I mean, everything about this movie is bad. I mean, the none of the acting by anybody is good. I guess I'll give Lucas Cruikshank this, that he's the most into it. He's got good energy. I think in that he's like, you know, he seems to actually give a shit about what he's doing. Which, I mean, hey, props for him. That's
Yeah.
must have taken a lot of effort. But other than him just being energetic, there's really no good acting in this. Oscar from The Office is in this, which is really funny. He makes a cameo. That's really weird. I don't know what was going on with his career at the time. But yeah, I mean, it's not written well. Like I said, it technically has a 3-act structure, I guess, in that it's like the first act is basically just a long Fred video and just him doing random shit. The second act is like his adventure or whatever, which is really just a bunch of random set pieces that feels like it was thrown together in a day. And the third act is them putting together this like fake party video thing on YouTube, which I actually think that whole sequence was not like good, but definitely like interesting of an idea to put together like a fake party with all these mannequins and they try to make it look real. Like that was kind of cute, I guess. I don't know, uh, but overall, I mean, you and I were talking about this. For me, about 5 minutes in, I'm like, not even 5 minutes in, like 30 seconds in, I'm just like, oh, my fucking ears. Like, am I right?
Yeah. No, like I vehemently got this is why it's the worst movie I've seen because I was getting vehemently sick like from it. Like my head started to hurt. I had to like watch it in parts.
Yeah,
Like I
I,
couldn't
I
do it.
I was listening to it with headphones and was like pretty in pain. Honestly, like don't watch this movie with headphones. Well, really
This
don't
movie
watch this
could
movie.
cause ear problems.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to even say like whether or not I would recommend anyone watch this movie from it's so bad it's well, because it's not so bad it's good. It's like it's so bad. But I
Yeah.
guess like it is spectacularly bad. Not
It
necessarily
is.
in the way that not like in the way that The Room is, because The Room is really fucking enjoyable. This is not
Yeah.
enjoyable, but like at the same time, I will say like this is not a boring movie by any the stretch of the imagination. It's only like an hour and something. Like, I don't know, an hour 20 minutes long. Like,
It's not boring. I just can't take it. I just can't take it. Like it's just awful.
yeah, it's. I
I really
mean,
can't take
it
it.
really is the epitome of what it's like to be 12 and like what a 12-year-old would make a movie about. Honestly, and I think that's fine. I mean, I think, like I said, I don't think this is like awful for someone who's that age, but also I don't see 12-year-olds now wanting to watch this. I see them wanting to play Fortnite and move on.
Yeah.
Uh,
Maybe I'm a
I
Fortnite
think this
movie.
movie, and what I told Ivan before, I think this movie is a perfect example of a time capsule of a specific time in YouTube's history. This was 2010. This was sort of the height and really the beginning of the downfall of like Fred's whole career, because really after this movie, I think everybody was pretty much over him. Nickelodeon tried to wring out some more money out of him, but it really didn't work. And I think from a historical standpoint of YouTube, I think it's interesting to watch it, but from any level of enjoyment, I mean, I guess a little bit of me enjoyed it for nostalgic reasons watching it again, and again it's like, but not the whole thing. Like maybe there were a couple scenes that I remember thinking were funny in a nostalgic way, but if I'm being completely objective here, it's probably one of the worst movies ever made.
It
But
is.
but at the same time, I still I don't hate it
Oh,
because of
I fucking hate it.
I don't hate it because of, I don't know, I think it's nostalgia, and I will I will 100% admit it is awful and terrible, and honestly I was very exhausted after watching it, and after watching it this time I was like, okay, I watched it when it came out. I watched it today. I will probably never watch it again. I, although I will say, I guess if I had to talk about anything that's good about this movie, I love John Cena in this movie. I think he's hilarious.
What's really weird?
I think he's the best part of the whole movie. Like I love him in this, and really none of the other actors. But John Cena is like he just puts so much into it, and he really didn't have to put anything into it. Like I don't know, like I love him in this movie, and that's the only thing I like about the movie.
I
Really,
was
is John
wondering
Cena.
why he was still dressed up like as John Cena the wrestler instead of Fred the dad. I mean Fred's dad.
I think they were trying to say that like Fred was just imagining that his dad would be someone like John Cena, when in reality his dad is actually the guy on the toilet in that picture. I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's so incoherent, but I don't know. I guess I'll say this. I enjoyed it a little bit from a nostalgic standpoint, in that I was like, oh my god, this is so bad, and I'm just cringing. But yeah, I don't know. I don't hate it, but oh, that his voice really is just the worst. Like
I'm done. Like I can't. I just
and they had to make him scream, and they had to make him scream in every like every 10 seconds. Like that was absolutely terrible.
Ugh.
So Ivan, on a regular scale, I'm guessing you would give Fred the movie a 1 out of 10,
A 0.
a 0. Yeah, let's see. I guess if 0 is an option, I'll give it a 1, because John Cena made me laugh, and again, from a nostalgic standpoint, I don't really hate it, but yeah, it's absolutely yeah. I'll give it a 1 out of 10 from a critical standpoint. From a it's so bad it's good standpoint, I might give it a 2 or a 3, because, like I said, I laughed at just how stupid it was half the time. But really, unless it's something like, the only way I would ever say you should watch for the movie is like, hey, remember how cringy like the YouTube humor was back in the day, and you want to remember, because you might not remember. Yeah, okay, watch that. But
Here's one reason why you should watch that.
otherwise don't watch it if you value your hearing like at all.
Here's one reason why you should watch it. So that's the first one. If you don't value hearing, watch it. If you want to take a break from work or school because you have a headache, watch it too.
Because it'll just add to your headache.
Yes. This movie's on so bad it's good scale. It's also a 0. I hate it. I'm sorry. I don't apologize. I hate it. Fuck it.
Well, but you did say that you never did you like it when it came out, or did you like the Fred videos? It sounds like you kind of did, or I don't know.
I dabbled in the Fred videos. They weren't like what I watched a lot of.
Yeah.
I was more Smosh.
Oh yeah. I mean, for me, it was like I was really into Fred for a little while. I thought the video, like, it really appealed to my sense of humor, because I was really into that stupid, crazy shit. But yeah, really, once I discovered Smosh, I pretty much moved on. And Nigahiga, to this day, is still one of the best YouTubers of all time, in my opinion. Smosh has gone downhill. Fred never really went uphill, but I guess did go downhill. Shane Dawson does other things. I mean, Ray William Johnson doesn't exist. Like all the old YouTubers, other than Nigahiga, have kind of disappeared. But overall, for the movie, it's not a good time.
Not a good time at all.
No, but I guess if you hate yourself, then watch it. And,
watch it, hate yourself.
Yeah, if you hate yourself, watch it and enjoy.
Others, make them watch it too.
Yeah, it's not boring, so that's something nice to say about it. I don't know. All right, Ivan. Well, I guess we got nothing left to say.
Yeah,
because our good friend Lauren has disappeared. Hopefully, she returns in the next episode.
We hope.
Yeah.
One can only hope. Two can only hope.
It's true. All right. Well, thank you for watching the Film Pod. I am JT Dubs.
I'm Ivan Lichtenstein.
And see you guys next time. Peace out.